worth knowing.
All right, man. Welcome to CRROW777 live stream. This is episode 24. It's just me and Jason tonight. Welcome aboard, Jason.
Good afternoon, almost evening.
Yeah, I actually went down, swam at the beach today, took Blix. Blix did his first, mini swim, so that was all good.
So what you're saying is he did the doggy paddle.
Yeah, just barely. I took him about, 8 feet off. I went out with him a ways, holding on to him, so he knew it was cool. And then I let him go about 8 feet by himself, so he hit ground pretty quick. So next time we'll see how he goes. But he'd probably be a pretty good water dog, I imagine. It's probably 95 degrees here today, I think. Humid as hell.
We've got a heat advisor for the past couple of days. It's should be cooling down shortly, but it was really hot. And there he is. He's saying hello to everyone out there in live stream land.
Come here, buddy. You gotta go lay down. I'm doing stuff.
Pay attention to me.
That's what he comes over and he starts gnawing the bottom of my chair off. He's still got, he's got 4 big boy teeth in the front now, so I didn't realize. I started looking it up. Apparently they have 26 baby teeth and then whatever it is, 40-some, 30-some, I think 40-some big boy teeth. But he's already got 4 big boy teeth in the front.
That's a lot, and he's going to keep chewing on you until he is done.
My forearms are shredded. I'm going to be so happy when he gets his adult teeth. But anyhow, let's jump into this. Over the past couple weeks, I've seen a lot of people convinced that we're going to hell in a handbasket. We've covered some things, and I'll leave it there. We covered some things that went ways that we didn't expect. But I've got a lot of contacts, and some of them are in positions that they should know some things. And what I'm hearing is that we're going to be in a better place. And so that's not a guarantee of anything. And I think it's prudent to look for the benchmarks. And I said, look at the obvious things, like how are chemtrails in your area? In my area, they're madly reduced. I suppose there's a lot less plane traffic, but if that's an agenda, you would imagine they'd be doing what they ever did. And I heard reports from a lot of different places where they felt like chemtrails had really gone down. But I think the big tell for us will be this supposed election. And the reason I think it will be a big tell is because if it's the same old, then that's what it is. There's no noticeable change. But another good friend of mine emailed me the moment this happened. Apparently, the High Court romped on the Electoral College. And for those who have followed, you should understand that the Electoral College is a backdoor to power. When the 13 original colonies were setting it up, Rhode Island walked in and said, "What the hell are you people doing? This is an illegal backdoor to power, and we won't participate." State of Rhode Island walked out. State of Rhode Island's weird in a lot of ways. My point being is Rhode Island told the truth. That's exactly what it is. And all these years that people went out to vote, they were not voting. They were being polled. That's why you're told you're going to your polling place. You have never voted to seat the highest seats. The Electoral College has done that. But what most people don't know is that how the Electoral College gets populated, it's an old boys club, basically. And they have numerous times sat a president against the vote of the people, which isn't actually a vote. Again, it's a poll. Point is the High Court has now told them that they will never again go against the wishes of their state that they're supposed to be representing. Additionally, there was some legislation of some kind that it's almost ridiculous in its delivery. Politicians break the rules, they can go to jail or something like that, as if that wasn't always supposed to be the case. But to get back to the election, it's weird already. In a normal period in the United States, we spend 3 years minimally talking about nothing, getting ready for an election that we don't vote anybody in on, and that hasn't happened. And yet we're faced with 2 guys, Trump and Biden. We're reasonably sure Trump's probably going down. That's the way it looks anyhow, but you never know. So what does it mean if Biden takes the seat? Is this another play on words? Are they biding their time? Are they biding their time? I don't know, but I do know that if the election comes off as same old, then it's not looking great. in terms of things. I mean, what would you add, Jason?
Yeah, I don't get the Biden thing. Like, everybody knows he's a creep and a half. Like, there's so many things just making fun of the guy for being a creeper. Who do they think they're kidding running this dude? And
They're all creeps, though.
Huh? Well, they are, but he's like
you
openly
gotta be
creepy.
honest.
I totally agree with you. He's just open about it. Like, there's so many things that get found about him. Like, yeah, we all know this. You don't get to those political levels or anything, entertainment, rock star, whatever. Doesn't matter. You're as my friend Brett and I like to say, you're eating the poop crackers at the parties. You're doing some sick stuff to get to a high level, and they've got, God only knows what kind of dirt on you. But he seems to be a little more open about it. Like, you see so many jokes about this guy, and it's just kind of like, ugh.
But this is the thing, people come along and they say, oh, this person's going to win, and that. Up to this point, the Electoral College just sat anyone they wanted. In other words, they made the king long before the king sat down, basically, provably. What's the name of the one president I always cite whose progeny are Pawn Stars? I can't think.
Yeah.
I can't think of it. Anyhow, one of the presidents that was seated by the Electoral College against the vote or the polling of the people are the people who run Pawn Stars, to put a fine point. And now you got nonsense like Kanye running. This is the same bizarro world we've lived in. If we're going to get better, then the people have to have a hand in choosing. And we have had a hand in choosing none of these people. And the fact that someone like Kanye can just pony up because he's got cash or connections is proving that we're in a tight spot here. But again, from more than one corner, I'm hearing that we're probably going to have a rough 2-3 months, something like that. And then the sky is going to open. And I'm not prepared to swallow that pill, I'll tell you. I always make the joke, Grandma, what big teeth you have? What have we seen our whole lives? But nonetheless, we had Mr. X on who said a similar thing. 2 other friends who work in pretty should know things positions said this. So I don't think all is lost here. I really don't.
Excuse me. Yeah. I think I'm looking at some comments here. I think it's time we once again reiterate that we live in a republic. It's called a democratic republic, and you, the people, do not vote in the president. Let's remind everybody.
Which makes it neither a democracy or a republic. A republic is the idea that your representatives are representing what you want, which is the Electoral College nullifies all that. That is the top tier of a group called the Electoral College supposed to represent the state, and they haven't. They've sat on multiple occasions, whoever the hell they wanted. And so this is where we've come to. But, here's part of my logic. You don't think that there are people in high places that have children who don't dig what they're seeing right now, and they're thinking, what's my child going to grow up in? You don't think that's going down? I'm just not prepared to accept that everybody in this world is on this bandwagon. And I'm pretty sure we all know the monetary system has flipped over. The government has flipped over in some way, shape, or form. We're just kind of waiting for the dust to clear. But I think watching the election, or not literally, I don't mean watch that nonsense, just be abreast of it so you can detect whether it feels like something different is about to happen.
So to be very specific, let's make sure everyone understands. There are 2 votes. There's the popular vote, and then there's the Electoral College. The popular vote doesn't seat the president. It just takes a popularity poll and says, which of these scumbags do you want in? Doesn't matter who you pick. We just want to see what you think about it. Then the Electoral College seats the president. And that's that.
Right. It's not, as a matter of fact, that ridiculous, right? Not long after you and I did the episode on the Electoral College, that, what's the name of that show? Some dude ruins things.
Adam ruins everything or something like that?
Yeah, Adam ruins everything. covered the Electoral College, and while they piled their horse manure on top, most of what they said was correct. And they even rated the United States in a list of who's the most democratic nations in the world, and we were way the hell down that list. They said a lot of true things, and then of course they did stuff like, but go out and vote because your vote matters, after they just got done telling you that your vote doesn't matter. But this is how we got to where we are. This is literally a backdoor that has allowed the deck to be stacked since this all started, since we've had an electoral college. And most people get upset when they hear it, but I would also point, what's the, can you recall the episode where we did the banker speech? The governor of the Central Bank of England, Norman Montague. Norman Montague in 1924 comes to the United States. By the way, our central bank is modeled on that bank, on that central bank, if you're following where I'm going here. So the governor of the Central Bank of England comes to this country in 24, and he gives a speech to all the bankers, which we posted verbatim in one of our episodes, and I'm pretty sure Rose can cite it from memory.
Well, I have no doubt about it.
Yeah, what it says is that now we have the two political parties, so we can use them to get them to fight with each other about things that are of zero importance while we basically take over the world because we're bankers. It's verbatim. You don't even have to try to read between the lines. And you can go back and read these things, and it's hard to imagine how we got to where we are, because what's actually happened is people have been proud of their country, so they wanted to believe what they were told. And they made that their truth. And it's unfortunate because it's not that hard to look and see how these things happen and what's actually been going on. And no one ever asks, why when I go out to vote, why are they calling it a polling place? There's a difference between a vote and a poll. But this is where we've come to.
So let's talk about just the division, the 1-2, the right, left. Of course, they have more than two parties, but none of them matter except for, of course, the left and the right, the Democrats, the Republicans, all that. So we have the red and the blue. Well, what did they show you in the Matrix? I mean, they literally stuck it right in your face, the red and the blue. Why is that? Well, those, of course, have connotations. But it's again, it's the division. It's black and white, man versus woman, black, whatever it is. It's all about the division. And while there are other subsects of things, they always boil it down to those two, because then you can control both sides. It's just as simple as that.
That's why there's a CNN and a Fox. That's why there's always opposing, and it pairs down in so many ways. An eagle has a left wing and a right wing. You can see how this was all fashioned out. For those old enough to remember, do you remember Ross Perot? Remember when we were going to have a third party and there was a massive groundswell? In California, when you went out on every street corner, there were people out holding Vote Ross Perot signs. It was getting to be a thing. It was everywhere. There was going to be a third party. And what happened? If you don't know what happened, go look it up. It's just more nonsense. His daughter is threatened at a wedding, or he's threatened and his daughter's going to have a wedding, and that ends the whole third party idea in America. And it's pretty simple. If we don't change majorly in the next few months, there's going to be real reason to be concerned that we're not going back to anywhere, someone wants to go to. But I don't think we're there yet. And again, there are sane people in positions of power, and those people have children and grandchildren. And do you think they want them growing up in this nonsense where, I just saw someone, as I came on, I almost laughed myself out of my chair. They took a flour tortilla and a shoelace and made a mask and got away with it. And if that doesn't illustrate the kind of monkey see, monkey do nature of where we've come, but the point is, people in power understand once somebody gains something, they never give it back. They never give it back. Once they take a freedom or do something else, it's never just freely given back unless they trade, unless they say, you do this other thing, and then we'll give you back. And usually the trade's a one-sided trade. So I think by the time we get towards the first of the year, we should have a pretty good bead on whether things are definitely going to hell in a handbasket forever, if that's the intent, or whether something else is going to go on.
And does anyone seriously believe that anything is going to change no matter whom they put in? Nope. 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 Doesn't freaking matter. Nope. Does not.
Well, there's all the signs too. Why would you look at the high court doing what it did, meanwhile where most of the courts are closed, not doing what they're supposed to be doing, being reset, I'm sure. There's two ways to look at that. It's sending a signal anytime the high court does it. Why would you pick out the electoral college? And so it's either that they're seriously getting ready to revamp some things, or they're doing a double reverse. And I don't have a crystal ball, but these are the things to pay attention to.
I just sent you a question in the chat there. I don't know if you want to address that or not, but we wanted to talk a little bit about solutions, just like we did with Clive DeCarlo, who I thought gave some incredibly detailed and helpful things. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. I hope that really does help people.
Well, here's the thing. I had a trigger finger, and my sister had it. They did surgery. It's a minor surgery, but it's still a surgery, and I was told that's what they'd have to do to fix mine. I was on the air when I took Clive's stuff, and before we got off that first hour, it was already improved. Right now, I have no trigger finger, and that's wholly due to mostly magnesium, but vitamin C and magnesium, but that's not the half of it. I saw probably 4 blow your mind emails from people who said they were sick their whole life. They started doing some of these very simple supplements, and they're saying basically it changed their life. Stories about people not even going out. They felt so bad for so long. It's crazy. These are mostly over-the-counter supplements that are not that expensive, but as Clive pointed out, one thing you notice is when you get Clive stuff and then you go into like CVS and compare the magnesium doses, they're way, way, way low on the over-counter stuff, and plus the purity and quality, I'm certain, is not where he is because he's mixing his own. So yeah, it's shows like that make it worthwhile. And not only this last one, when I first read that the Gerson method claimed they could stop a heroin addiction in 3 days without withdrawal, I was kind of thinking, come on, man, is this serious? Well, as fate would have it, I was in San Diego. I actually met Charlotte Gerson before she died. Her office is right down the town, San Diego. Her clinic is just over the border in Tijuana, of course, because the United States outlawed curing cancer with basically juice. And I talked with her about this, and not only that, I met people that were in the office. A couple of them said, yes, it's true. These addictions could be beat that quickly. And so when Clive started talking about it, I was intrigued. And I'm waiting for those emails. I'm waiting to hear if people who had opiate addictions or other things. I saw people talking about crystal meth addictions, which was a huge problem where I grew up in San Diego because it's where it was invented, in East County. The Hells Angels put that stuff out in East County of San Diego. I lived through that period. And so to see, it will be very interesting to see if people use these methods and achieve something. And if they do, I'll report it because I generally get to see the emails.
By the way, Rose and I found a juicer because we're trying to figure out anything to help her delicate health situation. It's not Gerson approved, but it is a masticating juicer, far superior to the one we had before. If you guys want to try it, we've been juicing every day for the past few days since we got it. It's called an Acon or an Icon, AIKON. Got it off of Amazon for $150. So it's not too bad. It's definitely.
There's Weiss.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's certainly not too bad. I mean, it's not like the awesome one the CRROW has, but you know what? It's doing a good job. It's getting nutrients into us, and it's far better than the cheaper. What's the other kind of juicer called? Centrifugal.
Well, as far as I know, there's 2 approved main juicers in the Gerson method. One is a Norwalk, and the other one is a Pure. The Norwalks and the Pures cost over $2,000. They're not cheap. You can get used ones, but they also, I think, say if you can't afford those juicers that they will support. I think it's the Champion juicer, but I got to ask you about yours. I haven't heard of it. So it masticates. How do you do the press?
It doesn't really do a press. I'm going to show it to you. I'll put it in the chat so that everybody.
Centrifugal?
No, it's not. Hang on one second. Let me grab it off of my thing so that. All I'm going to put it in the chat so I don't mess up your Skype. And you guys can give me your opinion on it. So far, for a cheapy one, it's been doing us good. And as Rose can say, she's been enjoying it quite a lot several times a day. All right, do you see it?
Yeah, I'm getting over there just a second. I got to clear a window.
So take that and take a look and tell me what you think of it. But that's the one we bought, everyone. It's in the chat there. I'll put it in D Live as well. But you guys can tell me what you think. I don't know if it's the best of the best. I'm really certain it's not for that price. But it's definitely doing way better.
So wait a minute. You see, so I see how it does it. How tiny are those screen holes?
That's only for the after stuff. That doesn't that doesn't do the juice.
Okay, so it doesn't jam everything through that screen?
No, the screen is just for the pulp, like to make it tiny. And
got it.
For a couple things, I actually put it back through again. We tried to get more out of it, especially when we'd made orange juice last night.
So then that looks like a good deal for the price because it's a fraction. But here's what I can say about the other two. I first had a Norwalk and I couldn't afford a new one, so for $800 I bought this old like 50s model. Weighed like 75 pounds, by the way. They're all very heavy because they have a hydraulic jack in them to do the press. It's all automatic. But when we got here, we saved up and we bought a brand new pure juicer. And it's redesigned, it's a little bit cheaper, and it's better built, easier to use, and I would recommend the pure juicer over the Norwalk. But they also, David Weiss, they also take payments, which is the other thing. But the problem is like we had to prepare to make a purchase like that. But anyhow, when you do the juice, it's a big deal. But anyhow, welcome, David.
Hey guys, thanks for inviting me. What's going on? Talking some health here, I see.
Well, we started out with some politics, talking about don't lose all hope and don't assume that everything's going to a hell in a handbasket. I don't think that's for certain at this point.
It is definitely daunting trying to figure out what's going to happen next and trying to keep a positive attitude.
Right. So have you been faring well not wearing a mask? I know you were, like me, not wearing a mask.
I have not yet to put one on, and they're really ramping up, the stories of people getting, thrown out of stores. You can tell which ones are fake. You can tell which ones are just, assholes that are, deserve to be thrown out. But I don't believe any of it. But when I go into the big stores, nothing ever happens. No one ever says anything. It's the little stores sometimes that are appreciative that you're coming in, and other times they flip out. They want you to wear a mask, and I explain the whole thing to them, and sometimes they're receptive, sometimes they're not.
Have you been thrown out of places?
When I went up to, I did a retreat with Dr. Kaufman, Beth Martins, Benjamin Balderson, up in upstate New York. I'm in Woodstock area, and I went into town there to get some groceries. Figured it'd be nice. Some hippies up there, and there was a nice little hippie health food supermarket. I went in. There's signs all over the place, but I didn't wear a mask. Made it all the way through the checkout, and then they said I had to wear a mask or they won't check me out. And I literally stood there for 10 minutes while they were waiting for the managers to come down. And I put all my stuff up on the counter. And, I'm like, why don't you just check me out? I'd be out of here sooner, And then the glass in between us was literally, mid-chest height. So I was like, what is that even for? It was just so ridiculous. And then I was like, how about I stand outside and you bring me my groceries? And they're like, nope, you don't put on a mask, you don't get your groceries. And I'm like, okay, and I walked out. I was a little upset because I had some stuff that I wanted to cook for everybody, but I didn't vote. I didn't do it. I held to my point, and it was a little. It threw me for a little bit, but I wasn't going to put a mask on. I probably could have pulled my T-shirt up over my nose and said, "How about this?" And they would have. But my suggestion for people that are really, doing this. When you go to the grocery store, they're starting to catch you at the checkout. So what you do is open everything, take a sip out of the juice, eat a cookie, take a bite out of the sandwich, eat the tray of sushi, whatever you got, open it and take a bite. And that way, when you get to the checkout, they don't want to check you out. They're going to have a big dilemma.
I did
It's
it
not
with
illegal to do that. It's not illegal to eat, to nosh in the store. Even if you eat the whole thing, you check out as long as you're not stealing. So when you get there, then they have a dilemma, and I bet you they cave when they see that.
How is it that all these places aren't going to get sued and lose big? Under the law, everyone has to be treated equally. So on the face of it, my corporate policy, it doesn't get you there. And think of all the people, I know a number of people who have been prevented from seeing their grandparents in nursing homes. That's been a big problem. Can you imagine how many people may have lost someone and not had an opportunity to see them? How can they imagine that that's not going to court when the dust clears?
So two quick things is what was I going to say? The one about seeing, like my mother, she lives in a senior facility, and I haven't been able to go to see her. She fell. She's 94. She broke both of her hips, went to the hospital. I flew down to Florida. I couldn't even get into the lobby of the hospital, right? They're taking her into surgery. I couldn't see her. And I left Florida the next day, and I still can't see her. And that was weeks ago. So it's insanity. When you're in the store and they're giving you a hard time, the place in Woodstock, they're like, well, this is a private property and we can make the rules. I'm like, oh, you can't make a rule that people with wheelchairs can't come in here. I go, therefore, you can't do this. It's the same thing. No, it's not private property. Go to the town hall if you have a complaint. And they don't care. What I do sometimes is I print out, and just go to, like I'm in Connecticut, I'll print out on the state website the COVID safety regulations for masks. And it always says, you're not required, nothing stated here requires anybody to wear a mask. They can't wear a mask. And if they can't wear a mask for any medical reason, psychological or physical, they're not allowed to ask them what that reason is by the other rule, whatever that's called, HIPAA or whatever it's called. And they don't care. Some people, the place in Woodstock, they didn't care. I showed them the paper. They didn't care. They didn't want to see it.
Yeah, it's staggering. It's people have lost their mind. If any normalcy does return, you're gonna see lawsuits stacking up for years over all this nonsense.
Well, absolutely. The question is, will normalcy return? They in colleges. I don't even realize how colleges are still a thing. How people are still sending their kids to college. We're still sending Sage's daughter to her senior year. She's a big sports player, and they've canceled the fall sports, and they're going to cancel the spring too. In my guess, I mean, I don't know, but I don't understand how any of this is going to survive. So, what that brings me to is the foregone conclusion that things aren't going to return to normal, and it's just going to get worse. And that's why I'm, struggling to keep a positive attitude.
I don't think people will tolerate it forever, and I think a lot of people are already kind of up to their eyeballs, and I think we're a little bit different than some countries. Some of the smaller countries, it's unreal what's being done to them. But here, this is a big place, and I meet people every day who are older than me who will tell you flat out, this is all nonsense based on nonsense, and I've had about enough. And I think it's going to come to a head either way.
Yep, I agree, and then I wonder because going out and talking to nice people, cool people, like I'm out on the Long Island Sound right now, and we just got some food, and we met some really super nice, cool, hip people, but they think everything, they think this is all real, and that we just need to wear our masks for a little bit longer, and in our circles, CRROW and Jason. We're coming across a lot of people that are awake, and I think that's less than 3% of the population. There's 3% of the population that's awake and will see things. There's 7% of the population that might question things, and there's 90% that will sacrifice their lives, let their families die and never do anything because they don't believe anything.
That's
I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer, but are more people waking up? Absolutely. Do we have a chance of waking more people up super fast? Very possible. I just am doing everything I can
So
to do it.
here's a metric that I can offer, Dave, because you're right. We end up talking within our circles and people we know, and that's not a fair sample. But you want to know what is a fair sample? The people who come subscribe and become members over here. I would lose count if I tried to go through my email right now of the people saying a year ago I thought everything I was being told was correct. I've met a lot of people that have fast-tracked waking up, and I think it's the old Buddha lotus in the pond thing. Some people are at one level, others are at another. But I think what this has done is accelerated the waking for a lot of people.
Absolutely. I like that term, fast-tracking the waking up. I'm seeing more and more of that. And, I went on a small channel the other day called Rippin' Rabbit Hole, and all of his non-flat earthers are now flat earthers, and now they're starting to see. And I'm a believer that once you see flat Earth, you see COVID, 9/11, Sandy Hook, everything else. All of those things come into view once you get your feet firmly planted on the ground, and you know that you're the center of creation. That opens up your mind so you can see reality. You're spinning. Good.
Well, I was going to say, what you just said is another key point of it. Got your feet firmly in this creation. This place was built for us. I would suggest to you that things like 5G are an assault on nature, and that makes the people doing it the enemies of this creation. And at what point does a living organism like this world say, we've had enough of that, and simply wash them away, or who knows? The point I'm making is, if you had to decide to align yourself with the natural world or align yourself with some bankers, which one of those would you do, and which one of those would you feel safer doing? I wouldn't want to be those guys all day long.
Right, of course. And Crow, I left my I would say cushy job. I had a nice business where I could just, on the side of the banking world. And now I'm doing something that doesn't go over pleasantly, except for the people that are already there. And I'm so much happier. I couldn't be happier doing what I'm doing now. So I do have hope, but it's every single day I'm trying to talk to people, and I've also gotten good at, there's some people that will never wake up and they just disappear to me. They become invisible, just like I'm invisible in the supermarket when I'm not wearing a mask. Nobody can see me. And I'm going to test that out too, and I'm going in without pants.
Well, I got to confess, whoever put that comment in, I may well do the flour tortilla gag, because that's hysterical to me.
That is great. David, now you've flown without a mask as well, right?
I just flew to Florida and back without a mask. I went on JetBlue, and I actually, on the way down, I had extra time, and I went to the gate attendant. And I said, "Hey, just for your information, I'm in row 19. I'm not gonna be wearing a mask, And she just goes, "Oh, okay. I just want to let you know in case you have somebody fussy next to me." 5 minutes later, she finds me and she goes, "Hey, would you mind if I moved you to the back of the plane? I'll give you your own row, and I'll board you first." I'm like, "No problem." I go back. They give me a snack and a drink while everyone else is boarding. I got to go on before the people in the wheelchairs, and it was fantastic. Way back, no problem. Crazy situation where the girl next to me had her mask pulled down below her nose, and the lady behind her was screaming at her to pull her mask up. I'm not wearing a mask at all. And then when they were getting ready to take off and they're checking for her seatbelt and everything, she's got her mask down to her chin. I don't have a mask at all. And the stewardess looks at her and goes, "Pull up your mask over your nose." Said nothing to me. I'm invisible.
But what did you do at first to get on without?
Well, the second on the way back, I was running for the plane, so I literally looked at the gate attendant, checked my ticket, said hi to the captain, smiled. No one says anything. But when on the way down, I was just being courteous to the two flight attendants and said, "Hey, listen, I'm not going to be wearing a mask. I can't wear a mask." They didn't even ask why, and just to let you know. And then when she said, "Hey, can I move you to the back of the plane?" I said, "If that makes your job easier, no problem." And it was pleasant. I got to board early. I got a snack, had my own. I get to lay down. It was fantastic.
You should have been wheeling and dealing. You should have said, "I'll tell you what, I'll take the back row, but you got to give me champagne."
I don't want champagne now.
That's not the point.
I could have asked for, I know. I could have asked for some vouchers for some free tickets.
Yeah.
But no, that would be very grabbler-ish, and I'm not a grabbler.
I don't know what the definition of grabbler is. I know that's an Owen Benjamin term.
Yeah, a grabbler is, let's just say, a banker. You know, is that a fair thing to say?
Someone who grabs things that they shouldn't be grabbing.
Yeah, there you go. Grab things that they shouldn't be grabbing. So
David,
man.
what I'd like to know is, because Rose and I are going to California to have her old doctor take a look at her. What do you think we should do to from getting in line with the TSA all the way?
Yeah, the TSA doesn't care at all. Just don't look sheepish. Don't have a mask around your neck, because then they'll tell you to pull it up. Have no mask. Don't bring a mask. And you have Rose. She's in a wheelchair. You have, that's the biggest handicap card you could have.
Oh, sure.
And there's no way they're going to say anything to you. But you don't even have to play that card. Just say, "I'm sorry, I can't wear a mask." And they won't even ask you why. But if they ask you why, just say, "Well, I'm not required to tell you that. But if you want to know, I'll tell you." And I'm waiting to use that line. I've never had to use it. And they don't care. They really don't care. They're like, "Oh, okay." And then, and then, like, if you're going on JetBlue or whatever airline, go to their website and either print it out or have it on your phone, their mask regulations, and you'll see in the small print that they cannot force you to wear a mask. You can also, point out that there's no law, and then if someone's really interested and they're like, "Well, that's interesting," you can start telling them how dangerous it is and how, unnatural it is.
So isn't that another tell, though? There's no law. If this was never going back to anything reasonable, why wouldn't they just pass any damn law they wanted, illegal or otherwise? It's never going back to a point where you'll be able to challenge it. That's another tell, isn't it?
What are you saying? That there's no law, therefore you think it's going to switch back?
Yeah, because if they want you to wear the mask, there's a reason for it, right? Because we all know that there's no reason for it, but there is a reason for it. So Absolutely. The point I'm making is, if this was a coup d'etat and we were never going back to any kind of normalcy, they would just dictate any damn law they wanted and care less, because there will never be a time when you can challenge it.
But what if a law that makes you wear a mask that harms your person is a law that violates natural law, and maybe they can't make a law? They'd love to, but they can't, and therefore they don't.
Well, I think I could probably, if I sat here for a second, think of a bunch of laws that violate natural law. And I don't think that's the concern of the people at the top, because what they're doing is convincing their underlings to pass laws for states and things like that. Look at every governor. Every governor has given a legal dictates. A governor has no authority to tell the people of his state to do a damn thing. The only people he can direct directly are his staff. That's it. You can go look up the powers of a governor. It's no different for the president. And Jason and I pointed that out when they decided to tell the country, "You can't have gold, you need to give us all your gold." That was illegal. He had no authority to give that dictate. So my point is that if this was never going back, why wouldn't they just put a law on the books at the federal level that says, "Yep, you better damn well wear a mask, or it's, 60 days in jail, $500 fine, or Lord knows."
So
I get it.
They're starting the mandatory mask everywhere tomorrow here in Louisiana. They announced it yesterday, so that's why I wanted to bring this up. And of course, neither Rose nor myself are going to wear one. We're going to stand our ground on this, but it's going to get messy, I think.
Mandatory. That's just a word. They're saying it's mandatory. Show me the law. Well, we're going to fine you. Well, show me the law that allows you to fine me. You can fine me, but I'm not going to pay it.
Right.
It's people are like, "You can't do that." Well, you can do that.
You can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, you can. There's all of these things where you have to pay your money to them for whatever reason. Those are not laws, and you're just fooled into doing it.
Where's your witness? Show me the law. Who got injured?
Well, the governor did sign another decree extension of the emergency, so I'm sure there's some excuse they're going to try and come up with, but it's still not a law, and that's that.
I truly suspect that when we come into the low point of the sun, we're going to have a real indicator of what's what. That is such a marker in my mind. I mean, Jason, I was talking about it more than a year before it got here. I think by the time we're getting to the low point of the sun, December 21, there will be a much clearer view of the possibilities in our world. These cycles, everything is geared to these cycles. How many people are aware that this occurred? This is one of the things, like over a year ago when I was saying 2020 is going to be a big year, and I started looking at the numbers. This is exactly 19 years after 9/11. All the metonic cycles, all the solar cycles, all the astronomical things that go on. And of course, Jason and I took a look at the big Marvel franchise last time around and married it off. But I think when we get down into just past mid-December, we'll have a pretty good view of what it's looking like, things are going to be like.
So, David,
Hey, I'm gonna go ahead, Jason.
oh, what's the general outlook with you there? Like when you need to go grocery shopping, all that. You're in Connecticut or New York?
I'm in Connecticut, right on the edge of New York.
Okay, yeah, I knew it was something like that. How are you dealing with grocery stores? Like, in general, are they letting you come in? Like, is the hippie store the first one that gave you so much grief?
The first one that gave me grief, that gave me only grief. So I shop at a big ShopRite, I shop at Costco, I shop at Trader Joe's. They have giant signs that say, you must wear it as of July, for whatever the date, and they have cop-looking, military-looking, private security people out front with a big muzzle on their face, and I don't say anything. I don't even grab their sprayed-down card. I grab one from the parking lot because I don't want the poison on the handle, and they just walk right in. One time the cop goes, "Where's your mask?" I go, "I can't wear one." He goes, "Oh, okay," and they lets me in. And that's it. Now they don't even ask. So
good.
You just walk in. And then don't look down at the floor when you walk by people. Look at them. If someone looks you in the eye, look them in the eye and smile.
There it is.
I'm not your enemy if they say anything. But nobody says anything. Occasionally when someone will go, "Where's your mask? You need a mask." I said, "What are you, the mask police?" And that was it. She didn't say anything else.
So the hippies were the first one to give you grief. How funny is that?
The first one, and two managers came out with their friggin' big mask on. I could not believe it.
You would think that the fact that they're kind of hippie-ish, you'd think they'd be totally anti-establishment, and it's the exact opposite. I mean, talk about just crapping all over what they're supposed to represent.
They are fighting for their enslavement. It's unbelievable.
Bingo! You just nailed it, dude.
Just the fact that you can do that, David, is the tell. Because
I'm gonna cut out, and
I think you just cut out.
I'm sure you guys will think of it.
What's that?
All right, man. Yeah, you're starting to cut out. And we hear what you're saying. We'll catch up with you, man. Thanks for dropping in.
You got it.
Thanks, David.
Bye.
But isn't that a tell, Jason? People walking in and not being challenged at the big box stores. If anyone could afford a lawyer, it would be a big box store. So what we find is the little ones that have been scared into submission are the people that are making demands that aren't legal. But these big box stores are not doing anything. That's a tell. That means at some point, if this was never going back to something but enslavement, they wouldn't give a damn. The president would show up and make a mandate or a dictate or whatever fancy word they'd like to use, saying everyone damn well better wear a mask, because they would know there's never going to be a time when anyone can challenge it in a court because everything's been taken over, and that's not what we see, and I think that's another tell. Why would you pretend like you're going to give a damn about human rights or existing laws about human rights or the rights of Americans if it was never going back to normal? I'm just saying.
Right. I honestly think that they're ramping this up again after things started chilling out a little bit, because we know the vaccine push is going to come next, probably in the fall.
Yeah, I think that it's a BITCH to flip over every system in the world, starting with banking, and it takes time. And they want all the little sheeple looking at the left hand while the right hand does what it does. To me, that's what this is about. It's also a bid for some people to see how far they can take it. But I am convinced that this is a bridge too far for a lot of people who aren't going to go down this road. And you've got to imagine, look at the guys in the military who actually have the wherewithal. If push came to shove, it's their job to protect, the people from tyranny. Would they just sit there and watch? If you were a general or something and you could just simply make a command knowing damn well that your grandchildren are going to inherit what you're allowing to happen? I'm just saying, I'm not ready to buy it lock, stock, and barrel. And I think that a big part of this was the banking, because fiat currency required more debt every year and everyone was tapped. They couldn't squeeze another ounce out of anyone, barely. And so to generate more debt than you had the year prior, and I know people in the precious metals markets and talk to them all the time to try to get a handle on it. And they were saying for the last 3 years that the fiat currency system is crashing, and there's no two ways about it. There's no trick, no secret, no little thing they can pull again to keep it afloat. And these people only do business in specie, gold or silver. Everything they do. They don't even use fiat currency. And they've been saying this for 3 years. And now when I look at what they were telling me, they weren't wrong. I'm just saying a lot of this had to do with banking. But look at all the other systems that are being reset. We're reasonably sure that the government's being reset. We're reasonably sure that the court systems are being reset. And how is it that I just saw one of our fantastic followers point out, I think they said the UK, they used one of the common law tactics and avoided a $170 pound fine or something like that. I barely caught it out of the corner of my eye there. But how is it that you can still pull these things off? Because common law is the basis for godly law. And if you're looking at a complete dictatorship takeover, they don't give a damn about your godly rights. And yet people are still walking into places and reversing the jurisdiction and doing all kinds of things, getting out of traffic tickets. And not only that, I would further point out, look at how many people know how to do that now. That's vastly different from maybe 4 or 5 years back.
Right. Someone asked if Alex Jones is a good one to get people onto normies, to introduce normies to the truth. And let me just make this clear to everybody. Absolutely freaking not. If you want somebody who is very easy to, that's palatable, that really researches heavily and is very easy to listen to, there's a guy named James Corbett. CRROW, I don't know if you and I have ever talked about him, but I've watched a bunch of his stuff. He's fantastic. He hits on a lot of the subjects we do without getting into the space stuff, but he's done Rockefeller medicine. He's done just everything, vaccines, the money, everything. The guy's fantastic and really easy if you need someone to introduce someone to the truth, and then they can start getting to the harder topics like we cover. But Alex Jones, hell no, absolutely not.
No, you see the system that we're coming out of, I hope, is a system where any person who has the ability to speak to a few 100,000 minds is signed on the dotted line. And I don't give a damn if you're a famous person, a rock star. If you will be in a position where you could address, and actually all of them can now because there's things like Twitter. How your average rock star or pop star, how many Twitter followers do they have? You see, so you are under contract to the point where it might even be argued you don't even own. Does Taylor Swift own Taylor Swift? I would make the argument that she may well not own Taylor Swift, that that's contracted to somebody, that that's part of the fame she was given. But my point here is someone like Alex Jones talks to many millions of minds every day in this country, signed on the dotted line. You do not play in the system we're coming out of. And that's why little tiny places like Jason and I had our channel deleted. We can't even run most of the hour ones we do anymore. Even there's a few hour ones we wish we never had done. But I'll tell you, that's the other problem with what's going on. How can you look at this system, understand what we said about the Electoral College, which therefore proves that all the people in those high political positions are there illegally, basically. They've scammed the system. How can you hang your hat and act like the president's the savior? I just don't accept it. And we've met people recently who take the opposite point of view, but logically, I cannot get there. It makes zero sense. For us to go anywhere, people like that have to be gone. And I'm not just talking about Trump. I'm talking about Biden. I'm talking about all of Congress. Every one of those dudes that's a lawyer or otherwise, that all has to go away. And so my point is, we see so many, the whole QAnon thing, it's a put up. And unfortunately, I could never talk about how I knew firsthand QAnon was a put up, but I've said so many times it's a put up. And still we hear people grabbing that and hoping it's true. And even just the basic logic of it should tell any mind out there, really. So there's a source close to the highest power in the world, supposedly, who's leaking information. How difficult would it be to figure out how many people could possibly know this information? It's that damn simple, for one. But I know firsthand that was a put up. And so it's no different than what we're all talking about with the mask. It's a way to control perception, which basically at the root of the virus, it's what's going on here. It's a way to control perception using fear. But what you got to do is look away from the thing they're flagging, making you stare at, and look at what's going on in other places. What's going on with banking? What's going on with the dollar? What's going on with the court systems? Look at these things. It's all being reset. And by the way, it looked almost immediately out of the gate as if the so-called corporate government of this country had merged with big industry. I'm just saying.
By the way, someone's asking, here is James Corbett's YouTube channel. He is an awesome place to start people off, breaking them in. And by the way, and James Corbett even agrees with this, of course, the whole Trump will save everybody thing, everybody knows that's nonsense. Q is nonsense. All Q is a guy on Star Trek. That's about as real as he is. The rest of it's nonsense, folks. I'm sorry to tell you.
Probably they used the idea of Q from Star Trek, that they're warping the minds and laughing their butts off, that so many people bought into.
And he's obnoxious on top of it.
Yeah, and not only that, I've seen coins minted, actually gold and silver coins minted that say QAnon on them. It's on the amount of effort put into these things. And what's even worse was the whole idea of how many people were so into Trump, so easily convinced that he was going, what was it, drain the swamp or something? I used to drive around where I live, and there'd be people with literally a sign on their house that said, let's drain the swamp. And I thought, my God, at what point do we grow up and actually understand that not only did you not pick that man, you didn't vote for that man, he was planned 10, 15, 20 years before he ever came there. He was planned to be where he was going to be. And this is the system that everybody's sick and tired of. It's just that when things get like they are now, they kind of wish for that system now that we were sick and tired of. It looks pretty good under the conditions we're all seeing right now. But I'm sorry. I'm going to hold my ground. I don't think we're going to hell in a handbasket. The moment I think that's probably true, I will say as much. But I'm not feeding the crappy river until I have to.
All right, so we've only got a few minutes left here. What would we like to get in here before we sign off?
Oh, there's something we can announce. How many people remember Dave J? One of the earliest no-nonsense voices compared to some people we've had on recently. But Dave J is going to be with us in a week or two, and he pinged me out of the blue today. He's done a whole write-up on numbers and other things, and I would say, of all the people that influenced me at any level, Dave J would have been one of them. And it was so ironic because so many people love to hate him. But if you could just set aside, I hate him or I love him or any of that, and listen to what was being said and peel away everything else except what was being said, you realized he was one of the early visionaries. There were a couple, 2, 3 back in the day. It's gotten very thin as of late. But there's still some good voices. But anyhow, Dave J is going to join us finally after all this time. I think he's like, I don't know, maybe Rose Knows episode 7 or something like that, way back with Dave
it was
J.
before I was officially on with you, and I'd only done a few episodes here and there. By the way, is he's big on numerology. I know he's very much into what would you call it? Just a very traditional Christian faith, but he's also really big on imagery, symbolism, and numerology, right?
In terms of viewing the world as systemic, like almost like a computer program, but I'm not implying it's a computer program. I'm not implying that. But looking at the systems that drive it, that are designed, and even how nature uses systems, he has a very unique way of breaking down the symbolism, and he'll run it from nature to a man-made system to a computer program to the very tones that make all the sounds we hear. He'll run through all of them It's actually staggering. If you're not prepared for it and you don't have a preface, it'll knock you sideways at first trying to keep up. But hopefully, he's mellowed a lot too. I think when he was on episode 7, I titled it something like Dave J, the man who raged, saw through the veil and then found peace, because he had left YouTube by the time I had started all those years later to do the podcast. And when I met him, I was like, at first, I was, this isn't Dave J. So just a different man, calm, mellow. He'd walked away from that kind of hellfire fight that was going on YouTube all the time. But I have not met too many people that can systemically lay down what he will lay down when he comes on.
Yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to hear where he's at, because it's been, a couple of years now, right?
Yeah, you want to know why? What was the old Tesla-ism? You don't know anything till you know what 3, 6, and 9 mean. We're going to ask Dave J, and he's going to tell us. And I'm not kidding. He just handed me some PDFs today. And you can go to it, actually, right now. People should head over to Dave J's YouTube channel. It is, actually, let me look. I'll try to grab it.
And while you're doing that, we are going to be having on another person to discuss the biofield tuning thing. A very nice lady, and I am finishing writing up an episode on banking, specifically about the Medici family, and we're going to talk about all the things revolving around what they did and the Renaissance and the art and how they're tied in with the Vatican, of course. All of that. It's going to be a crazy episode, and I think a very, very good one.
Yeah, and actually, as fate would have it, Jason, I think I've been wanting to do the fall of Rome, but we're going to cover Medici, so maybe we can kind of bridge the gap there until we have time. It's just with 3 shows a week, there's just not time to put together these massive shows anymore. Even though I have the research done, there's still not time. Plus, I'm building the website again, but besides all that.
Well, I think we're just about there. So, what do you want to sign off with?
Here's what I'd like to sign off with. Yeah, things are looking pretty hardcore, but if you look at them with a critical eye and set the fear aside and set the anger aside and get back to a point where you're not being mad at someone because they're wearing a mask, that you can realize the truth, that person's a victim, they've been boondoggled, because that is the truth, then you start to assess what you see. And right now, I'm not prepared to throw my butt in the Schitt's Creek without a paddle. I'm going the other way. I'm getting in the good stream. And I refuse to have anything to do with the other stream until there is a certain indicator that there's no other way. And we're not there. I can see so many things that don't make logical sense if we're just going to slavery days for the next 100 years or something. And I am convinced that some of the people that I talk with have very valid points. Unfortunately, I just can't talk about these things. So my thing is, by the time we start getting past mid-December and we start to look around and assess, let's hope that I'm correct and that we'll start to see, hey man, it looks like there may be a new day coming. Because throwing yourself on the dark side just because you feel like a beaten dog, that's not a good mental energy to feed the system we currently exist in. Anyhow, you want to add anything, Jason?
Well, again, they're instituting full masks for everything here. Rose and I are going to stand our ground. If you want this nonsense to stop and start pulling it back, you all have to say no. And I think they're ramping it up, getting the fear and all that, because they're going to start pushing a vaccine very, very soon. You know what's coming, everyone. You got to say no and just stand your ground. That's what Rose and I are going to do, and we're sticking to it.
All right, I guess we're there. I just realized as I glanced down at the clock, I'd like to wish you all a happy, healthy, higher-minded year ahead, and have a positive outlook. Look for signs that tell you this doesn't make sense. If we're just going to slave days, then why are these things I'm seeing still here? Why do they care about this right or that thing? Why aren't they just imposing with an iron fist? Think about it. There may be a there. I hope I'm correct. And if I ever reach a point where I'm pretty sure I'm not, I'll come on and say that too. But I wish you all the best. There it is, man. Cheers.
Oh, why don't you mention the transcripts before we sign off?
Oh, yeah. Thanks for reminding me. So today I took time. I've been so busy. I had to catch up on transcripts. I got up to 228.5, which was the Mr. X episode, but I've also done this. A bunch of people were wanting to get all the transcripts together and make big books. So what I've done, because we have to pay for those to be made, Rose actually has to type those by hand. So it's not just a free thing. I pay Rose for the time to do that because it's not an easy thing to do. I couldn't do what she's doing, to be honest with you. If I had all day, I doubt if I could knock one out. The point here is I flat rated the bulk download for every transcript. So for membership, it's a couple $100. And here's the thing. On any given transcript that we've ever broken even on, there's probably a handful of them, just to put a fine point around it. But it was getting to the point where a lot of people wanted to get all of them, and I said, well, why don't you guys just gang together, and it'll offset some of the costs that we had to do it. And so there it is. The bulk rate's down to a flat rate. It'll never go up another penny. Even if we do another 100 shows, I will never raise the bulk rate again, and I'll just call that as even as we can be. And up to 228.5 is posted for members. There it is. Anything else, Jason?
Nope. We'll see you this Thursday.
Have a good night, man. Cheers.
Cheers.
Belief is the enemy of knowing.